rather strange when you're a stranger.
Not really sure where to post this, but whatever. Just need to get it off my chest. I live in a pretty average apartment complex. Nothing fancy. 3 floors, kinda quiet. I've been here a little over a year now, and most people keep to themselves. Say hi in the hall, take out the trash. That's it. A few weeks ago, this new guy moved into the unit across from mine. Early 30s maybe? Thin, buzz cut, always wearing this same grey hoodie, even when it was hot out. Didn't really think much of him at first. People come and go here. He leaves his door open sometimes. Not like open, but cracked. Just enough to see the light on inside. Never any noise, no TV, no talking. I've never seen anyone go in or out except him. One time I was taking the trash out, around 1 a.m, and he was just standing in the hallway, not doing anything. No phone, just standing by his door, staring at the floor like he was waiting for something. I said hey, and he didn't even flinch, just kept standing there like I wasn't there. I walked past him and felt my skin crawl, like when you know someone's watching you. Fast forward to last night. I woke up around 3 a.m. because I heard this soft knocking. Not loud, just a few taps, spaced out. I thought it was my door, but when I looked through the peephole, no one was there. I stood there for a second, and right as I started to turn away, I heard it again. This time, it sounded like it was coming from inside the hallway. Just slow, spaced out knocks, like someone testing how quiet they could be. I opened the door and looked out. Nothing. But his door was open again, a little wider than usual. I couldn't see anything inside, just darkness. I didn't go any closer, closed my door, locked everything, sat in my living room with the lights on like a dumbass for an hour before going back to bed. He didn't leave his apartment at all today. I know, because I stayed home from work just to see. No movement, no sound, just the door, shut tight now. Maybe I'm being paranoid. Something about him just feels wrong. Like he's pretending to be normal but doesn't actually know how. I don't know. Should I say something to management? Cops? Feels dumb, but I've got this feeling in my chest that won't go away. I recently came across this subreddit and thought I'd share a somewhat unsettling encounter I had at a rest stop. This happened several months ago while I, male, was moving cross-country to Las Vegas. I arrived the night before I was supposed to check in and get the keys to my new apartment. I didn't feel it was necessary to get a hotel room, so I decided to sleep for a few hours at a pilot travel stop and then head to my apartment in the morning. There was a parking area to the side of the building with 3 or 4 rows of spaces. The furthest row was near a fenced-off area. Most of the spots were filled with trucks and vans, likely other drivers who had also stopped to rest. I parked my car in a space closest to the main building, since it had the most light, and decided to get some rest. I'd been asleep in the driver's seat for about an hour when I was suddenly startled awake by the sound of someone walking near my door. I looked over and saw a guy starting to walk away. He then turned around, saw that I was awake and looking at him, gave a little wave and started walking back toward my car. He said,
"Hey man, sorry to wake you, but my car won't start and I was wondering if you could give me a jump."
I was half awake and, for some reason, just kind of mumbled, "Sure, I guess." He replied,
Great, follow me around.
This part was clearly a stupid decision on my part, but I'll continue nonetheless. So I started my car and drove around to where he was walking. He led me to the far back row of the parking area, in the back corner, near the fence. At this point, I was starting to realize how shady the situation felt. I stopped my car about halfway down the row, thinking, just back up and drive off. This is dangerous. He saw that I had stopped and started waving at me to pull forward. For some stupid reason, I did, but I kept my windows up and the doors locked. I also grabbed my phone and pepper spray from my carry bag on the passenger seat. As I pulled up, I saw an old, beat-up RV parked near the even more beat-up pickup truck, which was filled with garbage in the bed. The truck was facing the fence, with the back toward the parking row where I was. The guy was standing near the front of the truck, waving jumper cables and signaling me to pull closer. The way the truck and RV were positioned, there was barely enough space for a car to squeeze through them. Suddenly, a woman stepped out of the RV and began signaling for me to pull up as well. At this point, I was completely suspicious and freaked out. I shouted out the window, "No, I'm not pulling in there. If the cables can't reach, you'll have to find someone else." She got angry and started screaming at me to pull up, and then the guy ran over to her, yelling at her to shut up and get back inside the RV. He then walked over to the driver's side of my car and said,
Just pull up close to the truck so I can hook the cables up, and we'll be done.
By that point, everything about the situation felt off, and I said, "No, I'm not going to be able to help with this." He gave me an irritated look and said,
Seriously? I've got to get to my mother's house. She's not feeling too well, you know.
I replied, "I need to go," and started backing out of the parking area to leave the station. As I was pulling away, I saw the woman come back out of the RV and start shouting at the man, pointing toward my car. I couldn't tell what she was saying, but I got out of there quickly and found another location closer to the city to spend the rest of the night. I don't know if they genuinely needed help or if it was a setup for something more dangerous, but I immediately regretted the decisions I made. It was clear the situation could have taken a very bad turn. I haven't thought about this in years, and it just popped back into my head. I was on the bus one day back in 1997 approximately, and about 5-6 seats in front of me, there was a girl I knew loosely from school. The bus had a lot of people on it. 2 people got on the bus, a man I would say mid-30s, and a woman I would say later 20s. Both were wearing clothes that looked as new, but about 60 years outdated. The man sat next to Michelle, the girl from school, and with his face around 6 inches from hers, he stared at her with a creepy, subtle grin on his face. He did not break this pose for 20 minutes straight, just staring at her while sat right next to her. The guy's nose was passable as a nose, but just a little longer and round on the end, and a drop of liquid was dangling off the end of this guy's nose. Not from the nostrils, but from the fleshy part at the end of the nose. Every bump on the road would wobble the nose strip, and he sat, eyes glued on Michelle, who was now getting irate and threatened to knock the guy out if he didn't move. He didn't flinch or move, and just carried on staring with the droplet dangling off his nose the whole way. Michelle forcibly squeezed past the man, who did not move an inch, as she had to drag herself through him to get off the bus. My next memory is the man and woman getting off the bus. The woman was walking at a pretty quick pace along the street, but just didn't look right. She was moving with purpose. The man, on the other hand, was standing in the road, looking around at houses with a weird little grin on his face. I cannot put my finger on it, but they did not move correctly. It was just slightly off. More weirdness. 1. Nobody intervened in any way at all, which was very unusual for the neighborhood. It's a tough, salt-of-the-earth type place. It's the type of place where people trip over each other to step in and help, especially a young girl. Yet, nobody moved. 2. The couple got off the bus at Michelle Street. The bus never normally goes that way. It's not even close to being on the route. But on that day, the bus went that way. I don't remember being concerned about the bus going that way. 3. I never got a clear look at the woman's face in the sequence of events I just mentioned, but for some reason, I had a very clear memory of her walking towards me, out on the street, even though I never got off the bus when they did. My mum was born and raised in the high country of east central Montana. She came from ranching people, and her father, my grandfather, was a genuine cowboy. She often did work around the ranch with him, so not much shakes her to a soul. Except for what happened when she had to run into town when I was only 8 months old. This happened in the middle of a sunny summer day. The ranch she was raised on was almost 2 hours away from the nearest town. You had to drive north on a highway for 30 minutes. Then you had to drive on a dirt road for another 45 minutes across the Montana high country to get to the ranch where she was raised. I'm emphasizing this because it not only shows how far out into BFE nowhere she lived at the time, but it plays into why this story becomes so disturbing. My mum had to run into town to get groceries and baby supplies for me. She was driving on a long and isolated dirt road back to the ranch when she reaches into her purse on the passenger seat to get something. It slipped out of her hand and into the passenger footwell. Fair enough. She then has to stop the car so she can safely retrieve what she dropped. She grabs it, and as soon as she sits back up, she looks into the rearview mirror and sees a man about 100 feet behind the car running at her. Needless to say, she puts the car back into gear and gets the hell out of there. As she's looking back at me in the car seat, making sure that I'm okay, she sees the guy give up running after her and run back into the ditch to hide. Of course, when she gets home, she tells her mum and dad, my grandparents, about what happened, and they are stunned. Here's where it gets disturbing, at least psychologically. My mum didn't see any cars or trucks parked along that dirt road for the entire way to the ranch. She also didn't see any people walking along the highway or the dirt road, which raises even more questions. How did he get out there? Why was he out there? And even more disturbing, what would he have done to my mum or an 8-month-old me? The more I thought about it, the more disturbing it became, my mum says. I've only asked my mum about this story twice. After the second time, she tells me never to ask her about it again, and I completely understand why. I get messed up thinking about it. I can only imagine how she felt having directly experienced it. Edit. I just need to address some things. First, this occurred way out in the middle of nowhere, out in the Montana high country. It's wide open and flat grassland with low rolling hills. The only traces of human activity you will find out there are the fence posts and maybe a windmill or an old abandoned barn or house. I'm emphasizing this because there were some comments saying that my mum should have just called the police. To that I say, what police? There are police in the small town where she got her groceries, but out in the Montana high country, good luck. This is the main reason why people who live out there carry firearms. If something happens out there, you might have to deal with it in the moment. I'll let you read into that connotation what you will. Second, some comments were pointing out that it was an interesting coincidence that my mum happened to stop her car near where this guy was hiding. Again, coincidences happen and weird things happen out in the middle of nowhere. Who knows why that guy was out there? Rural Montana is not a place where you casually go to hang out, unless you actually live out there, know someone who lives out there, or have some business with someone. You shouldn't be going out there for any reason. On top of how she didn't see anyone walking on the highway or the dirt road, and didn't see any vehicles parked along the side of the road. Any person who made it out that far on foot, for some reason, is not someone you should be interacting with. My mum was a petite 19-year-old woman with her 8-month-old infant in the back seat when this happened. I highly doubt she could have been any help to him. We will never know why this guy was out there. And frankly, I don't think we ever want to. I had the weirdest interaction with a family friend today. So, I'm in town visiting my family for the first time in a year. My parents' godson, 20, came over because I'm in visiting and was having a conversation with my mum. He recently moved out of my parents' house. My shoes were on the chair beside him, and he just lifted one up and started sniffing it mid-conversation. I immediately called him out on how creepy it was, that he just started randomly sniffing my shoe. Told him to stop and that it was creepy. He kept on. I told him my feet had been in there, and he said something about it having that new leather smell, like new car seats. He kept sniffing. Prior to him sniffing my shoe, he practically admitted to going through my closet because he remarked how my boots looked similar to the ones in my closet. My mum then went to have a cigarette and he joined her outside before grabbing my bracelet that had been on the bed and walking away while saying, "You know, I like this," and wrapped it around his hand. I had to pry it off him because I knew I wasn't getting it back otherwise. Now all I can think about is how he was probably sniffing the shoes in my closet without my knowledge while I've been living across the country. Update. So he doesn't have a key to the house anymore, for those asking. My parents didn't really see what was wrong with the shoe incident. However, I talked about the situation with other family members who said it was definitely creepy, and told my mum that she shouldn't dismiss it because my feelings were valid. I was told I was overreacting, but that it was a bizarre encounter. He lived with my parents on and off for about 2 or so years. I met him prior to the pandemic in 2019. I wasn't close with him or anything, and he hardly knows me. He assumes I'm financially well off and tries to take literally anything of mine that he likes. When he came around the other day, I had been gifted a laptop for my birthday, and he asked if he could have it, and he also asked for my Netflix password. I told him if he wanted to help pay a portion of the price every month, I'd be open to it, but he's too stingy to pay for it himself and wants to mooch. I don't know if he's expecting to be given things for free because he's too cheap to pay for it himself or what, but he seems to feel very entitled to my things, to say the least, with his insistent questions about if he could have my clothes. There are items of mine that are missing. However, it's unclear if he did anything to them, or if a family member moved them into storage. The whole walking away with my bracelet and talking to himself saying, "I like this," was just super weird. It makes me question if my items are really safe in storage, but I didn't want to point any fingers until I checked the storage myself. Update 2. More backstory to the recent situation. There's a laundry list of weird things he's done in the past. He added members of my family on Facebook that I don't even talk to nor have met, might I add. Why is he adding family that doesn't even live in the area, that I don't even know? My parents don't even talk to them either. He flags down my relatives in the store, even though he hardly knows them, and it creeps them out. He calls and texts my other relatives multiple times endlessly, then asks why they don't respond. It's like he can't take a hint. He shows up unannounced. He's so comfortable, he eats weeks-old food, or who knows how old, out of the fridge when he comes around, He repeatedly asked me on multiple occasions if he could have jackets of mine during the year I've been away, when I'd call my mother on the phone. He said that I didn't need them, or that I wouldn't be wearing them anymore anyway. He would text me off my mum's phone trying to small talk with me. Then my mum would text me, telling me he'd been the one texting. I noticed that my clothes he wanted to have had been in the same place I left them during my visit last October, so they hadn't been moved. But you have to dig in order to find them. This dude went through my things without permission and had the audacity to sniff my shoes right in front of me like I wouldn't say anything. I'm probably not going to let him in the house if he shows up again.
Hello, watchers and listeners. Thank you all so much for listening. If you have a story you'd like to share with the channel, please send it to my email, which will be found in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, consider signing up for my Patreon, which you can watch my videos ad-free and usually with bonus stories, as well as other perks depending on the level. This year, I will be redesigning my merch store, so keep an eye out for that one. And as always, the biggest thank you is to all of you. I truly appreciate all of your support over the last couple of years. And remember,
Papa loves you.